Okay, so before we move on to the next campaign here, or next portion of the campaign, there's a couple things that I just want to point out that I have done ahead of time here. One, I have gone ahead and healed a faerfarn of the damage using Dual Door's Cure Wound spell. And I've also ticked off the fact that I've used the first level spell here, and I realized that I had not ticked off that I had used a first level spell here as well. So that is now done. In addition, I did some testing with some of the options around going through and adding player characters to the map in the order of the marching information sheet in the DM screen. And from what I can tell, it is currently not working as expected. Because if I click on this little green icon down here and drag the items, or drag this icon and drop it onto the map, it just drops them in line of, like, as if they were a long line of characters, as opposed to putting them into the 4x4 or 2x2 that I have there. So while it works on getting the characters onto the map, it is not putting it into the formation that you're using. However, it does allow you to quickly get the icons onto the map and then set things up so that it's in the marching order that you have in the reference screen there, and it doesn't remove the icons from here. So that is a bonus. Another thing that I'm going to do is I am going to modify how the initiative is working within the combat tracker. I don't know if you noticed it last time, but when we completed round 1 and went into round 2, none of the initiatives were re-rolled. And that's because I had that setting in place. And I did that in place intentionally to show you what the differences were going to be. So the last couple of videos, the initiative was not set up to automatically change when the end of the round occurred. That is now something I'm going to modify here. So there are two things that come into play when dealing with initiative through the settings, and this occurs only on the DM screen. Auto NPC initiative. What that does is if I take this wolf encounter, which I've already got open here in the leftmost part of the DM screen, and I click on this little button down here, it's going to automatically drop all 3 of these wolves into the combat tracker. On top of that, it is also going to drop the icons onto the map, for those of you that didn't see that. And it kind of looks like that this wolf is kind of overlapping with that wolf. So it keeps it in the exact position or close proximity to where they were originally dropped. And the reason it does that is because it stores where those icons were dragged and placed on the map. Now, the grid that I've got here might be slightly different than the grid that was used by the Smiteworks team when they dropped these icons on the map. So that's why there's a little bit of variation in placement. And every computer is a little bit different when it comes to that. And I apologize if there's a clinking sound on the microphone. I've got a cough drop in my mouth here to try to prevent myself from coughing while I'm attempting to run through this video. I do appear to be acquiring a cough, and I'm a little bit concerned about that. So this is where the auto initiative for the auto NPC initiative comes into play. When you click on this arrow and it drops them into the combat tracker, it's going to automatically roll those initiatives for any creature that gets dropped into here, including this trap, which is the fisher here. Although it's not really a trap in per se, unless something changed in the module since the last time I played through it. It's really just a difficult area to get through because it angles in quite sharply here. So it's quite a steep / angled incline here. So there should be, yep, there's the third wolf. It doesn't do that when you drop player characters into place, because the idea is the players are going to want to either roll their own initiative, which in a lot of ways is their preferred way of doing things, and I can't argue with that point at all. At the same time, you could potentially use the DM and have him roll the initiative by clicking on this menu here, selecting initiative, and then clicking one of these options. So you can see here, that we have the ability to roll NPC initiatives, so that'll be for the wolves and the fisher. You can roll all initiatives, so that would be players and any other creatures that are in the combat tracker, or you can just have it roll the player initiatives. And you can also very quickly clear all initiatives. So I know that's a little bit low on the map here. That's just simply because of the placement of where I have the combat tracker. And as a result, the menu comes up. I kind of wish that the circle would sort of rotate up a little bit in a way that if you're down this close to the bottom, it pops up in a way that's a little bit higher on the screen, but nothing I can do about that for now. Now, where I make the change in the settings for having the roll occur on each end of the round is done in the house rules section under GM, and it's roll init each round. And CT stands for combat tracker, in case you didn't catch that. In this case, I have it off. I'm going to turn it off, or on rather, and that's really the only two states that are available is on and off. There is no third state or fourth state in there, like what you would see in some of the other stuff. So I'm going to turn that on. And right now, what that means is that any creature, player, or NPC or object that is now in the combat tracker, when you hit the end of the round, it is going to automatically re-roll the initiatives for you. And the reason I do that is as follows. When you set it so that it doesn't automatically re-roll the initiatives, the combat order is always going to be the same. And that really doesn't match with the way I would expect a combat encounter to actually go, because there's got to be a little bit of randomness to it. And if you hit, for example, a wolf so hard that your next you gain an initiative as a result of it because you rolled higher on the next round, that wolf goes next, you go first, you're taking an advantage of something you did in the previous round, even though it's really just a random series of results that come up. But that's how a DM can spin it and play it, and it provides a much more random encounter overall, much more potentially enjoyable encounter overall, because not only does it add a little bit of risk in the rolls, you could have it so that all three of the wolves go first and the whole party goes last, or vice versa. So there's a little bit of risk in play here, but at the same time, and I've seen this happen more often than not, that you're down to that last boss mob, and it's almost on the verge of cleaning out the party. I mean, three of your characters are down. You've got your last player character left. It's all up to that particular character, and luck have it, that character gets the initiative first, and it's enough to take down the encounter. That is what makes an encounter. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, what I'm going to do now is open up the campaign to the party again. We've already got it on the player screen. We've got everything open, everything's set up. I'm now prepared as the DM for the next encounter because the character is going to have to go past the wolf's den here, or kennel as it's called. But how are the players going to do that? That's going to be the question. Potentially they could sneak past, depending on whether they've got a high enough sneak value. They could potentially sneak all the way through the overall map to the boss encounter. But at the same time, there's a chance that they could potentially take advantage of a shortcut that could exist here. And this area is quite difficult to climb, so there's going to be something that comes into play. If you look at a character attempting to ascend or descend the chimney shaft must make a DC check of 10 or higher on a strength check, athletics preferred. If the check succeeds, the character moves at half speed up or down the shaft. So there is a fissure here that the characters could actually jump through, or climb through rather, and get up to this particular area here. And technically this area is where the boss fight is. One of the boss fights, I should say. There are actually two in this particular map. At the same time, the characters could theoretically all the way around, and as a result, potentially trigger a few risky traps. The players aren't going to be aware of this, so the DM has to keep this in mind and try not to drop any hints as they're describing exactly what they're seeing, describing exactly how things are laid out, laying the atmosphere, things like that. And that's what's going to make the story interesting, is how are the players going to go through this particular passageway without alerting these wolves, or are they just going to go in and attack everything that they go through, like a smash and grab kind of concept, if you will. That's what makes the game interesting, and you as the DM are really the narrator when it comes to doing that. You describe the environment, you give them the atmosphere that they're in, you let the players make their decisions. And unfortunately I do it sometimes where I question the players' decisions, and I shouldn't do that, because unfortunately it does provide a hint that maybe to the player that maybe that shouldn't be the way they go. So I've been working that out of my DM repertoire, if you will, and I haven't quite gotten to that stage. I do catch myself periodically doing that. But in general, everything is not as difficult in this particular module as long as the party is careful and able to deal with these things. And the map itself, all the combat ratings or challenge ratings, if you will, are low. So they're expected to be challenging, but not completely life-threatening unless they get a really, really bad luck with the dice rolls. So, with that in mind, we're at the end of the turn. I am going to have the players prepped to actually go through and work their way through. And one of the things as a DM that I found in Fantasy Grounds is when you're on the verge of a combat encounter, you're essentially giving a clue to the players if you all of a sudden you drop them into a combat tracker and they're going through a particular cave, because they know an encounter is coming up. So the way that I play it to keep it interesting is I use, after combat has occurred, like for example the combat that we just did with the goblins, I let the players stay within the combat tracker, and I use the combat tracker as the movement decisions and the action timing for when the players go through it. So faerfarn is going to be the next actual player to go. I'm going to ask that particular character or player controlling that character what they want to do, where they want to move to. And what I have found as a result is, as a DM utilizing Fantasy Grounds, I can preload the encounters, because by default NPCs, unless they got set up that way when they were dropped in here, aren't visible by default. And they may have gone through and fixed it up so that all NPCs are no longer visible by default due to the line of sight features. I mean, if you look at the player screen here, we're looking in multiple different directions, and we have a clear line of sight in only certain areas. So that will allow you, the DM, to load up characters in advance of potentially triggering a combat encounter. Now, in this case, the wolves are going, but if you notice on the player screen, there is no indication that the turn has begun other than the fact that the round has increased. It's gone from 2 to 3, although that was there before. Before I recorded, but if you look at the previous video, you'll see that that was round 2. So there's no indication to them that they're going, or that there's a wolf that I'm moving around or anything like that. That's one of the things I like about Fantasy Grounds. Until you make this character visible, so if I make this guy visible now, it'll show up in the combat tracker. But I don't need to. The players are going to discover that in a few minutes. And I'm going to set it so that all of the NPCs here are visibility sensitive, meaning that line of sight will make them visible. So when faerfarn, if he moves up into that particular area, they will become visible. Whereas if you don't do that, they won't become visible until you are ready to actually see them. And they don't automatically become visible in the combat tracker. You still have to enable that intentionally, I do believe. And we can see that here in a moment. So faerfarn. So these wolves are technically resting, so there's no real reason for them to move around. They didn't hear any of the combat that was going on. And I'm just going to re-roll perception just to make sure of that. Oops. There's an easier way to do that. Derp. So I'm going to have this character, or this wolf, roll a perception check. So in that case, it's just a wisdom check. You just click on the C here. Okay, yeah, no, they didn't notice. Wow, wolves get a -4. Oh wait, that was an intelligence check. My apologies. Wisdom check over here. Well, that one ain't seeing nothing. This wolf. And you'll see that when you open up these character sheets, the random number that is associated here is automatically tagged to the character sheet. So you know exactly who it is that you're controlling. Definitely heard nothing. And where's the third wolf? There we go. Watch this one roll a 20. Yeah, this one could have, but due to the rushing water here, I'm going to say that that rating is, or the trickle of water rather, I'm going to say that that could potentially be argued that it would be a DC 15 check as opposed to a DC 10 check. So during the combat here, it was far too quick, far too sudden. There was nothing really loud that occurred except for faerfarn's breath weapon, but again, that might not be loud. And the sound here doesn't really reflect back in that particular room overly easily. So I'm going to say that these wolves are totally unaware that the party is there for the time being. So faerfarn is going to move. Oh, that was one of the questions that I was asked. So there were a couple of questions that were asked in the comments about potentially locking a player's ability to move around. Now, unfortunately, with Unity, right now that doesn't appear to be the case. At least I have found no option to be able to lock a token into place so that a character, or a player rather, would only be able to control their own token. The other part of it is that with Classic Edition, if you there is the option to lock the tokens into place, and when you do that, the players don't actually move their tokens. They move an indicator to say, I'm going to be going to here, and they choose the path. So you end up getting an arrow that comes from their token to the direction that they're going and where they plan on stopping. If you approve of that particular movement option, you simply just right-click on it, and there's a little arrow that pops up roughly at around the, I would say 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock position, I think it is. Maybe the 3 o'clock. That you click on that, and then it actually executes the character's move. So there is the option to do so in the Classic Edition. It does not appear to be the case yet in the Unity version, and I'm not entirely certain if that's actually going to return or not. I don't know. They haven't indicated whether that is actually going to be the case or not. I'm hoping that they do, and I'm hoping that they tie it into the line of sight functionality to a certain point, because if the character's moving around and let's say they've chosen to go here, but they happen to spot something here, maybe they want to stop there and not complete the movement all the way through. So I'm hoping that they incorporate that functionality as part of the lockdown and the movement. And I did play with the lockdown capabilities in the Classic Edition, and I found that it added a little bit of a delay to the overall functionality of the map and whatnot, and how the DM had to manipulate things. But that was primarily because of the lack of line of sight functionality. You literally had to go and unmask the whole area manually each time somebody moved forward. With the line of sight functionality, that's all done, so you don't have to worry about that anymore. And so as a result, I may look at turning that back on if the feature does get introduced, and make use of that. But once again, on the player screen, faerfarn has a movement capability of 30 feet. That's the speed indicator there. So that means he can travel up to 6 squares, because each square is, in fact, 5 feet. I have confirmed that. So I don't know what was going on with it showing that there was a 10-foot spacing between these two characters. So, 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, he's going to stop there. So he could technically move 2 more turns and get at the wolves. let's see. Have the wolves spotted him? Yes, one of the wolves has spotted him. So at this point, two of the wolves actually has spotted him. So the first one is completely oblivious. The other two have definitely spotted him. So combat technically now is initiated, but I am on faerfarn's turn. I am not on the wolf's turn. I forgot to progress the token. So that means it is faerfarn's opportunity to get in early, get an attack in, and try to take out one of these wolves very quickly. He's in fact going to try to do that. So I'm going to use the boom, boom. He's going to call out that there are wolves here. Now, here's the other thing. This encounter does have a little bit of a catch-22. If you scroll over here on the DM screen, open up the Clark's Cave discussion. If anybody in here hears combat in this area, there's a chance that they may not necessarily... If they are warned by the goblins in Area 7, which is up here, and you can see the Area 7 here, then they won't be surprised. And in fact, Clark might have the potential to actually run down and try to escape. Or one of the other goblins might try to run down and escape. That doesn't necessarily always happen, but it could potentially happen. So you as the DM are going to have to keep that in mind. Now, there might be enough wind here, it could be argued, passing through this that it whistles loud enough to mask any of the sound, but at the same time, if the wind is going in this direction, it's going to carry sound up. So there's a chance that they could potentially be detected or made aware that there is actually a combat going on here. But having said that, faerfarn is going to target wolf number 10, and you'll notice I did something a little bit differently this time. I don't have the wolves on as part of the combat tracker, so there was no way for faerfarn to actually target the wolf, but there is. While I've been right-click or holding down Control and clicking on the icon associated with the NPC in question on the combat tracker, you can do the exact same thing on the map. And that is something that I've been intentionally holding off and showing you during this particular thing to give you a little bit of an idea of extra functionality on the map. So by clicking on this, you can actually target any of the wolves as required. So if I wanted to execute his breath weapon, which I can't, he's already burnt it through the day, or for today, I could have targeted all three of these and had faerfarn use his breath weapon, and away we go. And I could do that entirely from the map. The other thing is that I now have Wolf 10 targeted. I could potentially, let's see, he's close. He's going to use his longsword. I can drag and drop that attack on top of the wolf. So I can literally left click, hold down, drag it over, drop it on top of the icon for the wolf, and you'll see that I actually attack that wolf with that attack. I don't necessarily have to have him targeted there. And that would be a hit. So I'm going to do the same thing with the damage. And I have now damaged that wolf with 5 points of damage. Wow, that's a really low roll. Giving him a bit of a punch there, if you will. There is an alternative rule that can come into play with D&D, and that is when a particular character takes excessive damage. And what they mean by excessive damage is that they receive more than half of their hit points in one, I think it's one combat encounter, so one round. So if faerfarn had hit him for 6 hit points, theoretically I could make that wolf make a Constitution save. And there's also a way to actually have that set up to be automatic. And I believe that is under house rules as well, if I'm not mistaken. It might be under combat, but let's double check. House rules. Yeah, system shock, right here. I'm going to turn that on. And the reason why I'm going to turn that on is it adds a little bit of risk to the encounter. So, System Shock is where a creature or a player, and I'm not entirely certain if it affects NPCs, so I'm turning it on intentionally to see if that actually will come into play. If you receive more than half of your hit points in damage, you make a Constitution save. If you fail that Constitution save, you're immediately taken out of the fight. And that adds a bit of risk to the players. And I generally don't turn it on at level 1, but I want to see how this actually works in reference to NPCs. So I've turned it on for now. All right, so there's nothing else that faerfarn is going to be able to do unless he decides to use his second win, which is a heal. And he's not going to do that just yet. He hasn't suffered any damage. He'll save that for a little bit later. So there's nothing else he has. I don't think he has any. No, he has 2 weapon fighting. Oh, I forgot to make a modification here. So one of the things that I've forgot to set up, right now, faerfarn is using 2 weapon fighting. So he has a longsword and a sword. Now, he has a bonus action, which he hasn't yet used, so he can use this short sword as an attack because he did hit this wolf. But the one thing that he can't get is the damage bonus. And right now, I simply modify that by making the adjustment here. And there is another way that you actually are supposed to be able to do that. And I think you just simply turn this to a hyphen, if I'm not mistaken. There's quite a few of these. There you go. So if the particular character happens to go through and increases their skill that gives them those damage points, then, or damage bonuses. So in this case, faerfarn has a very high strength to give him a +3. Then what'll happen is that if they add 2 points to that to take it up to 18 when they hit level 4, you might no longer be subtracting the right amount of bonus here, or right amount of the +1 out of here, or +3 or +4. And as a result, that may introduce a problem. So the correct way, and this was another suggestion made by one of the viewers, is to actually go through and set that to hyphen. And what that does is that eliminates the bonus completely. Once this character takes dual wielding, then you get the ability to reapply your bonus back to the weapon. So faerfarn is going to take or use his short sword as an attack, and that is a miss in this particular case. So his turn is done. He's going to pass the token. Now Grow goes next, and that is Grow here. He's going to go 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to make enough room for the cleric. And let's see, what does Grow have for capabilities? He doesn't really have. He could potentially use Thunderwave, but the idea is to get through here quietly as possible. So, he is going to cast Resistance on himself and give himself a bonus, and that'll last for 1 turn. So that's in case one of the wolves circles around. And right now, unfortunately, Grow doesn't have any other ability to do anything. Now, the Fisher obviously doesn't do any movement, so if you look on the DM screen, it doesn't come into play yet. Now, Clever is the next character who can go. So Clever is going to move up to here. Now, she has the ability to now see all of the wolves in question. And what she's going to do is, she didn't pick up her arrows, so she doesn't have those. Sneak attack. This is a perfect opportunity to show sneak attack if she hits. So she is going to use her short bow and attack this wolf. And unfortunately, she misses. Dang it. I won't be able to show that. And she has no other capability right now. Okay, so that would be her turn done. Now that puts it at this wolf. So this wolf is going to go... There we go. And move into place here. And attempt to attack faerfarn. So do I have him now targeted? Yes, I now have him targeted. Now, there's a couple of things that come into play. And yes, I know they have keen hearing. I intentionally did not allow them to hear anything. So, a wolf with pack tactics has advantage on its attack rolls when one of its allies is within 5 feet of the same target. In this case, this wolf has now flanked faerfarn. So this wolf gains an advantage attack roll. And what you can do is click on advantage here, down near the modifier button, and then double click your attack. And it should roll 2 die. That is a hit. I now roll the damage. Oops. So faerfarn failed. And he is stunned. So there's an effect that comes into play here. On top of that, faerfarn now has to make a strength versus saving throw. And fails. Auto fail. He is now prone, which means he's now stunned and on the ground. Any further attacks that occur to him are now with advantage. And this is where random dice rolls will come into play, because there's a chance these two wolves won't necessarily be at the top, but there's also a chance faerfarn won't also be at the top. Now, he is stunned for 1 round. And I believe that might be the wolves' round, not his round, but we will see when we come around to that. You'll see the effects disappear. There's nothing else that this particular wolf can do. So his turn is now done. Duldor, has heard faerfarn scream. So he's going to move in. So you'll notice, now, one thing here. I was hitting the upper left movement button, and it wasn't moving into that particular area. And the reason for that is that that particular square there is blocked, partially. You can still move into it because it's not totally there, but you can't pass through it, which means there's a block there. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now, healing word for Duldor. Really isn't going to be beneficial to faerfarn in this particular case. But I'm intentionally moving faerfarn close to there. Sorry, Duldor close next to faerfarn or in proximity to faerfarn, so that if faerfarn does go down, he can execute Spare the Dying. Because I want to show you how that is actually going to work. Now, Sacred Flame. Okay, so Sacred Flame is actually a spell that increases with damage over time. And at 5th level, you gain the ability to use it at 2d8, as opposed to 1d8, which is what you're currently doing. So, how much does his Warhammer do for damage? Because that's versatile. In this case, it's doing 1d8 plus 1. Alright, so I'm going to use, and I'm intentionally not going to target the wolf right here. I'm going to simply left click, drag this dice, and throw it on top of that wolf. And there is a failure there. So that means that that particular wolf is going to suffer 1d8 radiant damage. So again, I'm going to simply left click, drag and drop it on top of that particular wolf, and let the roll occur. Okay, so that wolf should have taken 7 points of damage. And you can confirm that, sorry, 1 point of damage, dang it. And you can confirm that by looking at the combat tracker. And he, in fact, did take 1 point of damage. Now, is guidance a bonus action here? No. It is an actual action. Nothing else here is a bonus action? No. Okay. So let's see how this is going to work. So I'm now going to end the turn or end the round by clicking on the down arrow so that Duldor can indicate that his turn is complete. You'll notice now that the initiative has rerolled, and oh my lord, all the wolves are going. Almost all the wolves are going first. So there's a good chance that faerfarn is going to go down here. All right. So starting the next round, we are now into round 4. Wolf 10, which is this wolf here on the DM screen, gains advantage because of the fact that there's a wolf next to the target that he is going to attack. It's going to make that attack, and it's going to automatically be with advantage anyway, and that is a hit. So he is already prone, and faerfarn is now unconscious. So not only is faerfarn prone, oops, I'm going to scroll in here. He now has resistance to fire, he is prone, and unconscious. So he is out of the fight at the moment, which is not necessarily a good thing. This wolf is now going to switch targets because this target is now down, and all I did was control and oh, right, there we go. Okay, and it's going to attack Duldor. This wolf doesn't get advantage this time, so he's just going to make a straight attack. Wow, I'm rolling really good. Our healer might go down here. Oh, ugh. No reactions. Wow. Oh, he gets no reactions. Okay, so Duldor took a significant amount of damage in that particular case. And this is where System Shock really should come into play for players. Early in the game, rather. He has to make a strength saving throw. Succeeds, so he is not knocked prone. Okay, next is the Fisher. And Duldor now goes. So there's not really much here that Duldor can do. He is going to spare the dying. And all I'm going to do is drag and drop that. Nope, okay. He's going to execute spare the dying. So I'm going to click that. And there should have been... I don't know why they don't have the stability effect here. But as the DM, actually as the player, I can now drag and drop the stable effect. So stable. That's not on him. Okay, so drag and drop that right onto faerfarn. And now he is stable, which means that when faerfarn's turn comes up, he doesn't have to make any form of saving throw. And that is unfortunately an action, which means that Duldor does not get any further movements or actions. He can move, but if Duldor moves out of the reach of this wolf, that wolf gets an attack of opportunity. This party might end up wiping here. Clever has to get lucky here. So Clever, let's see, what does she... All right, she is going to change targets, and she currently has nobody target, so she's going to attack this wolf because she realizes now that they're... And that is once again a miss. So as you can see, the players aren't really getting that great a roll. Okay. That means that Grow is the only one who has any potential ability to do anything. So Grow can do this. He's going to move to there. technically that is legal. Oops, I'm not doing that. I don't mean to be doing that there. So he's going to move to there, and he is going to cast Thunderwave. Thunderwave is a spell that originates in a 15-foot cube from you, which means it would, let's see, is there a pointer here? Draw a square. It would affect an area that is like that. So it's centered here, and it affects everything outwards from that point forward. So these two wolves here would be affected. So I'm going to get rid of that drawing. And he's going to target both of these wolves and then execute Thunderwave. Failure and a success. So there's 2d8 points of damage that's going to happen here. Oh, nice. That took both of those wolves down. So now the party only has to contend with this particular wolf. The problem is he can't end his turn here because he's technically standing on top of a fallen comrade. So he's going to move to there because he doesn't have to worry about an attack of opportunity coming from this wolf. This wolf is unconscious / dead. This is the only wolf that could potentially attack him. And as a result, as long as he doesn't go back to here, he is safe. If he doesn't leave that wolf's sphere of attack capability, which, in case you weren't aware, is generally the squares immediately around it, unless it has a reach of 10, then it's actually 2 squares around it, he won't incur an attack of opportunity. So this wolf is the only wolf that is now left. The problem is, utilizing Thunderwave, there's a very good chance now that the people up here aren't going to be surprised. In fact, I could go through the process of rolling for that, but I'll do that after this particular encounter. So that's how that particular round has gone. Faerfarn, you'll notice that he didn't roll a death save. He's unconscious. He should have. No, wait, he isn't. He is unconscious, but he is now stable, despite his dying aspect here. So, with that in mind, when you apply Spare the Dying, you stabilize anybody who is in a dying state. They no longer take any further death save rolls, and as a result, don't have to worry about it. Now, I'm actually going to modify this ability right now because that should have been something we could have added as an effect here. So I'm going to very quickly add spare dying semicolon stable, and it never expires, and it's a target. So that would allow me to actually target somebody, and instead of me having to load up the effects thing, it will actually apply that effect implicitly. So I will intentionally remove this. So he is now stable. And then he's going to target. Sorry, Duldor is going to just simply drop this on here. We'll drop it onto the map. And you see, he is now stable. That should prevent Faerfarn from having to worry about rolling any additional death save rolls. And if we get through the next round, we shall see what happens there. So, Wolf 6 is unconscious. We don't have to worry about that wolf anymore. And that puts Wolf 10, which is unconscious, at the top of the list. Great, that means the party actually gets to go first. And this is a perfect example of the party is on the verge of wiping. We've got one character down and stable. We have another character who took a massive amount of damage to his hit points, but is still up. He just can't react. So this wolf, if this character wasn't here, and I'm pointing this out on the DM screen, if Grow wasn't next to the wolf, this wolf could have run away and not suffered an attack of opportunity from Duldor, because Duldor is suffering from a no reaction effect right now. But it also means that Duldor, let's say he was a mage, he could not react with a shield. So there is that as well. All right, so we are now in round 5. Well, technically round 3 of this particular fight. Wolf 10 is unconscious. We don't have to worry about him. Grow goes next. So Grow is simply going to use his scimitar. So he is going to untarget Wolf 6, target Wolf 9, and make an attack. That is a miss. Faerfarn is still unconscious, although he is now stable, and you can see he still did not roll another death save roll. So if I look at his character sheet, there are no pips here being ticked off in any of the death save fields. The Fisher, Wolf 9, okay. Wolf 9, I'm going to spread the damage around. I'm going to be a nice DM. I'm not going to wipe out our healer. And Wolf 9 is going to untarget him and target him. He does not get any advantage because he is not attacking Faerfarn. He is not attacking Duldor, and none of his wolves are around. Now, attacking Duldor would not have given him any advantage on an attack either, but that is a hit. No reaction, disadvantage to attack, and disadvantage to checks. That is a massive system shock. Holy crap. Alright, and that's all the wolf can do. Unless he wants to run away, which... Let's show how that works. So, Grow here can make an attack of opportunity. So this wolf has made his attack. His packmates are down. He's going to run away. He's now left Grow's... Shit, he can't do reactions. Okay, so I'm not going to play that right now. Never mind. But anyway, yeah, I think you've gotten the point by now. Clever. Clever, it's all up to you at this point. So let's have a look here. So Clever, what can you do? You are still trying to fire arrows at him. So I'm going to drag and drop that into place. Finally, that hits. So, this wolf has 2 people that are actually next to the wolf that are an ally of Clever. That means I can now execute this sneak attack roll. So I'm going to click that to apply the effect to Clever. And then I'm going to roll the damage. And what you'll see is that the 1d6 die for the short bow has been rolled, and then you'll see this purple die. That is for the sneak attack capability. And that... Did that take out that wolf? That definitely should have taken out that wolf. So, wolf 9? Sorry, that was my bad. So I now have to drag and drop the 14 onto that wolf, and that'll apply the damage. Now that wolf is down. Yeah, okay. So I clicked here because Clever didn't have that wolf targeted. But all I had to do as the DM was drag and drop that damage on top of the wolf. Or actually, I did that as the player and dropped that onto the wolf. That wolf is now down. This encounter is finished. So the party can now begin to focus on recovering Faerfarn. So I'm going to clear the wolves out of this encounter. I'm going to take the wolf encounter and drag it into the party's experience point sheet here. And I'm going to award that out. So you can see that the party acquired 38 experience points. Still not enough to level up, but they're close. They're getting there. Now, Duldor is going to execute another Cure Light Wounds on Faerfarn. And that's going to quickly drop the heal right on top of Faerfarn. So Faerfarn is now back up, and all the effects that are on him can be removed. He's not necessarily standing, but he doesn't need this. He's no longer unconscious. Okay, so faerfarn goes ahead and stands up. Oh, yeah, look at that. It was Duldor's turn next anyway. So, problem solved. Now, generally as a DM, I will when the last NPC has been taken out in a fight, I will finish the actual round. And then the NPC or the initiatives that get rolled after that is the movement order that I then use going forward. And that allows for a variation in everything that goes forward as you move through a particular dungeon. And what I mean by that is that after combat, the first person to go is not necessarily going to, or the first person to move rather out of the area isn't necessarily going to be the first person to move that moved last time out of an area. This gives you the randomness of that particular movement order, and it adds that randomness to the overall story. Okay, this party is hurting. So this party is temporarily going to make a tactical retreat and leave the map. So the first person to go is Grow. So that is this particular character here. And he's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Use a dash, and I'm going to put him there so that to indicate that he's temporarily exited the map. Next person to go is Clever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3 to dash out as well. Then it's faerfarn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then dash to get out. And then last is Duldor. Oops. There. Okay. So the party is making a tactical retreat to recoup and rest as best they can. Now what that means is that as DM, you could potentially throw them into a situation where they could potentially run into another encounter. Now the whole point of a level 1 campaign is to allow the players to enjoy that campaign. Yes, there's risk in play here, but they're not going to enjoy that campaign if you happen to throw an encounter at them. And this is a perfect example as to why having your DM roles not be displayed to the characters. So I'm going to open up the encounter check, and I'm going to roll that, and it's going to go into chat. But it's not going to be visible to the players. And all that's going to do is tell the players that, hey, what just happened? They're going to think there might be an encounter coming. Then they're going to start to worry, and then you as the DM are going to sort of let them off the hook. So, everyone has gotten a long rest. And we can do that here. They're taking a long rest to recoup all of the hit points that they have. Regain all of their spells, and take another crack at this particular cave in a fresh frame of mind. They didn't know that they didn't have an actual encounter kick off. As you can see, no encounter, but it's not displayed inside of the chat box there on the player side. So that is one of the ways where hiding your dice roll as the DM becomes beneficial, because now the player's going, oh good, finally we didn't have to worry about it. But you made them panic for a very brief moment. And that kind of adds the level of tension that you might want in this particular situation. They're camping relatively near a goblin hideout. They're going to take a risk if they actually do take a long rest in the area. That's kind of the point, is there has to be that level of risk. So that's where hiding your rolls can add value to that, going, oh crap, we forgot about this. There could be an encounter coming up, guys. Wait, we managed to get through it. Okay, we're good. All right. So, having said that, I need to reduce rations. So we're at 15. For Duldor, we are at... Where are the rations? 10. And this is where, as a DM, you go, okay, players, time to use up one of your rations. Okay? Now, if you had a ranger in the party, And 14. You could potentially defer that by... This area probably has quite a bit of wildlife around it. Maybe not so much close to the hideout itself, but if the party had gone a ways a little way, they could have taken a rest there. And in theory, the ranger could have acquired enough food to be able to keep them going. On top of that, Duldor did have the ability to actually go through and execute. No, sorry, not Duldor. Grow had the ability to potentially purify food and water. So even if they found something that was kind of bleh, they still could have actually gone through and had something purified and made it edible. So there was that option. And Grow hadn't gone through and used up all of his spell slots, but Duldor technically had. So when I executed that second Cure Wounds, I should have clicked on that second pip. When I executed second Sacred Flame, that doesn't use any of these pips. So we are coming up on approximately an hour of recording again. It's amazing how much time flies. So with that in mind, that is going to be the end of this particular video. And that will be episode 4. And the next time, I will continue having this party go through this particular scenario. And there'll be a decision that will be made when they get here. They'll realize that they haven't gone through and investigated this room yet, so they're going to have to go back and take care of that. But anyway, that is the end of episode 4. And I will see you in the next video.